my glasses on, that'll help. Yeah, okay. All right. So this is a lecture that we give at the university, or for anybody that wants to learn about the teachings. Go ahead, yeah, yeah. So these are, yeah, you can go on to the, yeah, right there. So medicine, when you call medicine wheel teaching, it's good medicine. When you have your traditions and ceremonies and beliefs and values, ideals, worldviews, that's the medicine we talk about. It's not what you go and get a prescription for. It's not what you take just for a headache or something physical. It's holistic medicine. And so that term medicine wheel has more than just medicine, because I think sometimes people think of it as physical only, but it's actually spiritual as well, and mental and social and all of that. And of course, wheel is the circle of life, cycles, recurring patterns, and the sacred circle. It's really important to have that idea, because everything in that I've been learning in university or at Western Way, there's a beginning and an end. It's linear. And so, and it was actually difficult going to school for the first time in my community, because we always sat in circles. We always learned in circles. But when you're brought into a classroom, there were desks in rows. And so we were always have our back, because we were always told, you never have your back against anybody. That was one of our traditions. And so in school, we would never sit straight up in our chair, and the teachers and the nuns would say, turn around. And we would say, sorry about my back, because we could never have our back to anybody, and stuff, because that was disrespectful in our culture. So we were considered bad listeners, because we didn't listen to what the teacher said, because we were still taking these ideals to our classrooms. So it was really difficult. So circle is very important. And of course, the idea, everybody's looking forward to Fiddleheads, because this is the time of the year, so we're reminded every year when strawberries come, when the salmon runs, when it's time to go hunt for our deer, our moose, etc. And I was so lucky in my trip to Ontario to taste pike and caribou and venison and traditional berries and maple syrup, and it was just awesome to be to have that taste. And so those are recurring patterns that are important to us. And of course, it's an ancient symbol that represents ideas that are important to Aboriginal people. So the 4 colors have something. You'll notice that it's all joined together. So we're all together. It's not 4 separate ways of knowing. It's 4 separate ways of knowing, but we're going to be in the same circle together and stuff, okay? The next slide, yeah, okay, and so helps us to look inward. That's really important. When we talk about stamina, we think about bear medicine. And some people, when they talk about medicine wheels, they'll actually have medicine totems. And totem is a word in our language, dudem, the one that, in my language it means dudem, the one that walks with you, but it also means clan. And so it looks inward and explores our inner selves. And I may have mentioned before, if not, I think it's important to remember, in our culture, when we look within, we see the elder within us, not the elder we're going to be, but the elders that we come from that 7 generations before us. And so we look for that, sometimes people say, look for the inner child. You could probably go back a few years. For me, it'd be 66 years or 67, since I'm 67 now. I could go back 67 years to my childhood, but I go beyond that. I go to my mother's time, my grandmother's time, her grandparents' time. So that's the inward thinking that we talk about. So it goes deeper than just your lifespan. And of course, the medicine wheel teachings is a mirror, can be used to see or understand things we cannot see or understand because they are ideas and not physical. Sometimes things have to, seeing is believing is an English term, but for us, it's way beyond that. It doesn't have to be in front of us to believe it. Like I remember talking to an elder a beautiful elder, and he would say, I don't tell this to everybody because they're not going to believe me, but I know you believe me because you know about our culture, and so you understand about those intangible things that guide us, and stuff. So incorporates beliefs, values, and worldviews of our Wabanaki ancestors. So it's so this is traditional to us. So it's not something that's borrowed or interweaved. We've always had these. So, yep. And sacred circle symbolism is enacted in daily living and ceremonies such as sun dances, sweat lodges, sweetgrass ceremonies, pipe ceremonies, sunrise ceremonies, and feasts. And so they're passed on from generation to generation through ceremony, tradition, storytelling, and actual practice. So for example, I'll just share a ceremony that I did yesterday of what we say honoring our ancestors. It's in our belief system that the DNA is in the placenta of the baby that surrounds that baby, that water. It's DNA from both sides of the family. And so the ancestors' responsibility is to protect that child in the womb. When the child is then gifted to the family and the community, the placenta, it's our responsibility to make sure that we bury those ancestors again. And so we bury the ancestors again. And then the ceremony is we ask permission for Mother Earth to take the ancestors back. And we will bring medicine, we'll do a circle, we sing a song, we smoke our pipe, we promise the ancestor that the child that's been gifted to this family and to the community is someone that we're all responsible for, not just the parents, and so the whole community. It's that saying, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, that's the belief system. So it was beautiful to hear yesterday, listening to the community that was there. I promise I'm going to teach this child how to. I promise I'm going to teach this child to. I carry language. I'm going to make sure this child hears the language. And then the child is then gifted with a spirit name. And so even though the baby already has a Mi'kmaq name, I asked the parents if I could have their permission for this child to carry another name. And it's a really beautiful spirit name. I forgot to ask permission to share the baby's spirit name, but it has to do with, I was called on just before the child was born, and I actually heard the child in the winter wind and stuff, and so his name is Bunlamsuin. Which means winter spirit, the winter wind spirit. And it's that one that you'll hear whistling sometimes and stuff. And so it's just a reminder, but that's medicine. It's just to remind you, it's cleansing period. It's, take it easy, don't overdo it. Tell a story, So those are teachings that we forget, and stuff to do. And so that's what this little baby's responsibility is. He's only a few months old, but already he has a responsibility and stuff, and that's really beautiful. And so our Wolastoq elders have confirmed that these teachings apply to our culture. And they have confirmed that the values, and these are the universal teachings I talk about, that the values of respect, sharing, balance, harmony, interdependence, very important. We forget about that. We, for some reason, when you see the number one sign in a game, number one, and sometimes we're told number one is just being an individual and that's more important. But in my culture, it's not important. You have to know that you need other people. You have to be part of a group. You have to belong to someone. Identity is important, and I think that's kind of what's happening is there's this lack of identity among our Aboriginal youth, that they don't see themselves as being important enough, as part of society. And so they need to be interdependent. But right now it's my problem, I'm going to handle it on my own. And so it's lacking. Honesty, which is what this couple that I worked with yesterday, I'm actually doing a traditional wedding. So another ceremony that I do is when a couple asks me to do a traditional wedding ceremony, and now that I can, I didn't know you had to have a license to do that, but I have a license now to do it because I had to go through the Statistics Canada to make sure that I was recognized as an officiant to do traditional weddings. And so honesty is part of that. And so one of the things that I shared, I think the last session that we had, was this wedding shawl. And the wedding shawl is wrapped around the couple holding their eagle feathers. And so whenever there's an argument, then they will hold those feathers and be honest with each other. Like, I don't like your team, I don't like your, going out with the guys all the time. And he'll say, well, I don't like it when you do this and you do that. So you owe it to the relationship. If you're going to be walking with this person as one in our language, we don't have the word husband and wife. We can say it, but it's anglicized. But it's too possessive when we say "Duskidabe" means my man, and "Dapidem" means my woman. And we don't address each other that way. We address each other Niziwiak, the one I live with, the one I walk with, the one I dream with, the one that I hope with, the one that I plan with. And so it's a different term for my partner in life, and stuff. And so when we use those other terms, then it kind of labels it and not define it as a good way to walk together as one. And so that's why that wedding shawl is important. I make it with Gwen Bear was the one that actually designed it, and she makes it with the 4 colors so that it will be for